As an example, let's say that we want to add 1/6 and 1/30. We must make the denominators of these fractions the same so that we can add their numerators. If we factor each denominator, we can write each of them as a product of prime numbers. Since our goal is to make these two denominators the same, let's see what is making them different. The first denominator is missing one factor of 5 that the second denominator has. We can remedy this situation by multiplying the numerator and denominator of the first fraction by 5. This doesn't change the value of the fraction since it's the same as multiplying the entire fraction by 1. However, its denominator will gain the additional factor of 5 that it needs. The two fractions will then have a common denominator of 30. This is the smallest denominator that will work for both fractions, so it is the least common denominator. Now, adding the two numerators, we get the sum of 6/30. We first factor each denominator. The first denominator has only one factor of 3, while the second denominator has 2. We can make the two denominators the same by multiplying the top and bottom of the first fraction by 3. The two fractions will then have a common denominator of 18, which is their least common denominator. And we can now add their numerators. Factoring each denominator, we see that the first denominator needs a factor of 7 that the second denominator has, and the second denominator needs a factor of 5 that the first denominator has. So we multiply the top and bottom of the first fraction by 7, and the top and the bottom of the second fraction by 5. The two fractions now have a least common denominator of 210, and we can now add their numerators. Same fractions, and factor the denominators. Now we can see that the first denominator only needs an additional factor of 3, and the second denominator only needs an additional factor of 2. So we end up with a much smaller common denominator of 36, and a sum of 31/36.